we really need desperately to make sure that individuals know that that's okay, right? People should understand what the boundaries are, right? People should understand what the limits are. Nobody needs a 4-year-old trying to get behind the wheel of a car because, they're flexing the sphere of discomfort, right? It goes into business and everywhere else. No limitations, right? But understand that experiencing that discomfort because of I'm a little bit more uncertain out here, that's a good thing, and we need to reciprocate that as leaders and as entrepreneurs, right? When people fail, but they fail when they're trying to achieve something that would benefit not only the organization but also them, and they did it with the best of intentions. Make sure to be cognizant of that when addressing the failure, and do it appropriately so that they'll continue to be dynamic and attempt to grow and benefit themselves and benefit the organization.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Matt John. I've known Matt for about a year now, and he has helped us in many ways internally that you're going to hear about. He works with DLP Capital, who's a group that we have learned so much from over the last year. But Matt specifically, he is goal-driven in pretty much all aspects of his life. He finds it extremely important not to only visualize his goals, but to document them as well. And he prides himself on daily and weekly progress towards accomplishing his goals. He loves problem solving, finding solutions, right, and to simplify processes and redefine or refine the desired results needed. He loves a challenge. He loves, when the waters are turbulent, right, and learning from those examples, which you are going to hear about over the next couple days with Matt. He's a graduate of Westchester University. He enjoys health, fitness. He's accountable to his coworkers, leaders. He loves spending time with his wife and children. And as I enjoyed this interview with Matt. I've known Matt, like I said, for about a year, and he has helped us implement numerous things internally that have helped us to succeed, have more success, as a company, and create better culture and better communication across our entire team. You're going to hear a few different things about that today and tomorrow, but he's going to elaborate on some things that are going to help you in a big way. I mean, in the navigating, right, the storms that we all expect to come, right? If you're an entrepreneur, no matter what the economic climate is, there's going to be storms in your business, right? There's going to be things that are not expected that happen. And you got to just your mindset in walking into those things is so crucial. And he's going to help in elaborating on some ways that he has done this well, how he's helped other people do it. And then in another show, we're going to document or dive into some ways to have some competitive advantages, or as he's worked with numerous organizations in helping them, he's going to elaborate on top 2 competitive advantages that he sees across numerous successful organizations. Well, if you are an entrepreneur, you've probably experienced some rough waters at one time or another in your business, or maybe in other parts of your life. And I know at LifeBridge, there's times it happens, right? There's things that happen that are not expected, and maybe the waters get a little turbulent sometimes, and we got to figure out how to navigate at that time, right? It's not a time to throw the oars in the water. It's time to paddle harder normally, right? Or get more people on the paddles, one or the other. But our guest today has helped us to do just that. As a listener, you've heard me talk about DLP Capital and some different ways, they've helped us to implement a number of things that's helped us internally in our operations, our meeting cadences, our communications, or knowing, that everybody knows what they're responsible for on the team. All these things have helped us in a big way, right? To navigate the storms that come as a business owner as well. And one individual that's helped us a ton to implement those things is our guest today, Matt John. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eddie. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, honored to have you. And I was asking Matt, as I ask every guest, before we start, like, what's your superpower? And I love his answer. He says, he loves the storms, right? And it's navigating the storms for him and helping others to navigate those storms. So I want to jump into that a little bit, because I do believe that there's listeners right now who are navigating storms in their business or maybe other parts of their life. And I believe over the next number of months, there's going to be more storms for more operators potentially, unfortunately. And so I hope this is a very valuable and timely episode for you. And so, Matt, let's jump right into that. But wait a minute, before we do, who is Matt John? Give them a little more about who you are, Matt, and a little bit about your background, and let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah. So my background is actually of a financial nature. For the first, I guess, 20 years of my career, I was an accountant. Started obviously as an entry level accountant, moved up to the controller seat, and was a controller when first brought on board at DLP. My current team, my current employer, my current family, and I made the shift over onto the operations side of the house in an operational capacity when I think, frankly, to your point, I really found out who I was and found out my why, so to speak. I think you used the term superpower. I think I've been able to identify that, and not just my superpower, right? But in kind of walking backwards, really thought about the thing that fills me up the most, the thing that gives me the most joy, the most happiness, the most pride in kind of value delivery, and that's value delivery for others. I think when I can provide a solution, I can provide a service, I can provide something in some capacity that helps alleviate an issue that fills the void of a need, whether that's for an individual, whether that's for a group. That's the thing that really fills me up. And I've really kind of developed a knack personally over the years for really being able to do that during times of significant distress, during times of kind of the stormiest waters, the stormiest weather. And the great part about that is, my family now today in DLP, was just such a it was such a puzzle piece style fit for me finding this organization, because Don Wenner, our founder, CEO, visionary, he's pieced together over the last 2 decades from a number of different resources what's been compiled today to call the Elite Execution System, and it's built to do exactly that. To be leveraged when there are issues, when there are roadblocks, when something needs to be resolved, to be able to move forward expeditiously. And so there was a lot of synergy there between me and my why and DLP, where I call home today.
That's awesome. I appreciate you elaborating, and we've learned so much from just the way you all operate, right? And diving in on that and trying to implement those things. And that's where you've helped us a ton. And it's interesting, you start implementing these things and initially it can seem pretty overwhelming, right? You got to see all these things to track, or all these things to do. And it takes time, right? It takes some time. And I think even internally it can be, for a team, it can be overwhelming too when they see all these things coming, right? But looking back now, it's just part of the way we operate now. It's like we don't think about it as much, but I can see how it helps us to, minimize the rough waters as well. The better we communicate, the more everybody knows what they're responsible for, the more, all these things that help us to, if a storm's coming, we can see it faster, right? Our it's not as foggy, I guess, getting to the storm, right? At least if it's coming, hopefully we see it coming because of the ways that we operate now, hopefully. But let's jump in there a little bit. What are some ways that are some things that kind of help you navigate the storm? One thing you mentioned before we started recording is you enjoying the stormy waters. And maybe you could start there, because that's not the norm either, right? I think that you have to train yourself to think that way, right? Most of us do not enjoy stormy waters, in a reference analogy for our business or our family, or whatever personally, right? We want it just to be smooth sailing off into the sunset constantly, right? It's just laying out there with our drink in our hand, right? The cool breeze. That's all, it's all we really want it to be. So to say, we want it to be stormy, is not the norm. And I couldn't agree with you more about why you said this, but I thought you could elaborate there to the listener and help them to think that way.
Absolutely. And just to clarify before we jump in, there's nothing I like more than smooth sailing, blue skies, drink in the hand, light breeze, right? So it's not that I seek out the storm, but I think I get excited when those big issues come about, when those opportunities to really dive in and fix something that is truly broken or that is truly standing in the way of progress. Because I hope everyone can kind of relate to this, but in my experience, when I look back at my times of struggle, when I look back at the toughest moments in my life, personally, professionally, younger, last week, whatever the case may be, the largest amount of growth, the most significant change in me for the better is when I dug my feet in and found a way not to avoid addressing it, not to circumvent it, not to hand it off to someone else, but to say, this is here. There's no path forward without addressing this. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to tackle this thing that, frankly, either has been passed on, is kind of the gorilla in the corner of the room, right? Is the elephant that nobody's willing to take the first bite of, whatever analogy that we want to use. But it's been avoided by others. I love that. I love a challenge. I haven't told this story in a while, but so I went to Westchester University, was where I got my degree from in Pennsylvania. And it's funny, I had a significant interest all throughout high school and frankly all throughout my younger years in psychology. Just love the idea of how the human brain works, and then specifically being able to help people through that understanding, right? And my dad, part of me said, "Hey, listen, if you don't want to be an author, it's very, very difficult to pursue that course." He goes, I've never seen you sitting down in your room and keeping a journal or authoring a paper that you were just couldn't be pulled away from. And so he said, "Hey, listen, I want you to go and I want you to talk to the dean of accounting as well, right? We'll talk to the dean of accounting, we'll talk to the dean of finance." And I remember so vividly the dean of accounting at Westchester, and I believe that they still hold this distinction, but they're very, very proud to say that the only school in the state that had a higher pass rate on the CPA exam was the University of Penn, was the Ivy League school that's in Pennsylvania. And he basically spoke to everyone that came into his office to talk about this program, that like this wasn't for everyone. This was very difficult. It was very rigorous. It was going to demand a significant amount of my time. When I saw friends going out to parties or going out to bars or, spending weekends doing, visiting other friends at other colleges, I needed to be prepared, as did anyone who was in the accounting platform or curriculum needed to be prepared to spend those weekends in the library studying. And then he looked across the table at me and he said, there's nothing about the conversation that I've had with you today that would indicate to me that that's the kind of commitment that you're ready to make for accounting. And so I would suggest to you that this is not the right course for you. This is not the right curriculum for you. I don't believe that you should pursue this degree at this university. No more surefire way than to get me to commit, than to tell me that I can't do something, or tell me something is difficult, or tell me that so many people try and fail, can't succeed. Anyway, I graduated Westchester University with a degree not only in accounting but in finance as a double major, and so that's really I think that story really kind of encapsulates. For me, just the type of attitude that I pour into that. But again, I look back at that event. He was spot on. It took every ounce of energy that he said it would take to do as well as I did in that curriculum. And I'm better for pouring myself into that. I'm better for navigating towards the storm as opposed to away from the storm, trying to outrun it. Face the storm, right? Is it Ryan Halliday, right? The obstacle is the way. There's so many books and so many brilliant people continue to kind of reiterate that. I had to try it for myself, and it's spot on in my experience.
It's interesting that I wonder if he said that to everybody that came in, to see who would quit, and like either going to make you step up or step down.
I wonder if it's something I said, or maybe it was something I was wearing when I went in to see him. I can't remember, but yeah, it's interesting. I think about the same thing.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, is there maybe even, as you are working with numerous entrepreneurs now that are in, say, the elite program or whatever, maybe an example where you could see a storm coming and how you help them navigate it, or maybe how they should have, obviously, it's all anonymous, but maybe how, because of the systems that like DLP has helped put in place, that maybe it helped them navigate the storm, that would have been a worse storm otherwise.
Absolutely. So and I don't think you need to go further than, kind of the figurehead or the staple, right? The rock that the Church of EES, right, of the Elite Execution System is built on. It's the compass. This is something that helps to dimension not just for the business owner, but for the entire team underneath that business owner. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? What purpose do we have for pursuing this real estate entrepreneurial venture? We're all for-profit businesses. Everyone's certainly looking to be profitable, looking to have, to be in the black at the end of the day and not the red. And so that's not really the why, and that's not really the purpose that I think that really can be built on like that rock, like that cornerstone. A why has to be something more significant than that. A why needs to be something that, frankly, the best whys that I have ever encountered are when you truly take a step back and look at them, they're not achievable. And what I mean by that is it's a goal that's set that may never be reached, but the fire to achieve them will continue to burn. The fire to achieve those goals will always ignite passion in the business owners, because the business owners are passionate. They're natural leaders, natural entrepreneurs, natural visionaries. The rest of that team sees that passion and feeds on that passion. It ignites this thing within an organization that allows people not just to march forward together, right, but to bond and to bind, to be marching at the same thing in the same direction. And so that's really at the crux of it. One of the greatest tools that I have seen is where that compass is really dialed in, and it is the focal point of an organization. It's absolute. It's a borderline steroid, just as far as growth and the gains that you see as an organization. It's borderline narcotic. And then everything else flows down from that, right? There shouldn't be anyone at any level of entrepreneurship who has not experienced having multiple priorities to try and manage at any given time, right? You start off with an entrepreneurial business, and all of a sudden, you're doing marketing, you're doing sales, you're doing capital raise, you're doing acquisitions. It's a host of different responsibilities that end up being owned by a host of different individuals. It's almost like, for the first, 1 to 5 years, depending on what that growth pattern is of the organization, just don't even bother with titles, right? Because your title is everything. Your title is the need, right? But rocks, Gino Wickman concept, and I don't know if he's the originator, he took it from somewhere, right? But it's something that DLP has also adopted. And the idea of these tools, these rocks, is amidst all of the different responsibilities, all of the different competing initiatives, we identify that down and slim that down to only 3, that above all else, if everything else slides, if everything else is pushed to the side, if everything else is backburnered, these 3 priorities are the most critical priorities to be accomplished over the course of the next 90 days, over the course of the next quarter. And it helps from a prioritization standpoint in saying, listen, I have 50 things that need to get accomplished, but I know, because I took the time before this quarter to sit down and really consider, of all these initiatives, all these different directions, all these things I could charge after, what are the 3 that are going to give me and the organization the highest level of return, get us closer to the goal that we're trying to reach, produce the most level of ramp up, of ratchet up, right? The thing that's going to be the highest octane fuel in the tank if we're able to achieve them, and then let nothing whatsoever come between you and achieving those goals over the course of that quarter. That's really, I think that's rocks, or that next thing that really, once that compass is dialed in right, and you know better than anybody, it is a detailed process dialing everything on that compass in. But once it's there and the vision is set, the goal is set, the brand is set, the customers are set, the products that you're offering are set, you start to dial in kind of the day to day, the week to week, the month to month, your meeting cadence. What is it that we need to all get on the same page on? What do we need to meet weekly on? What do we need to meet monthly on? And then it's rocks. It's about what are the priorities of every individual on the team that they will not be distracted from, that they will above all else achieve. So those are really things that I think have helped to navigate the storm, because those competing priorities, that is the storm, right? Or in other words, that is the whirlwind. That is the chaos that we all face day in and day out. Is, you know, some rise early and some work late, and I think, you know, part of the reason for that, part of the idea for that is, if I rise early, I can beat the text messages, the phone calls, the emails, the chats, everything else that start coming your way the moment that the rest of the world engages. And rocks and the compass, and frankly, all of the elite execution system. One of the many things they help do is again, navigate those storms, navigate those rough waters.
Yeah, no, the compass is it is a hard thing to get completed right off the bat, right? And I feel like once you've done it, then you have somewhere to start. You know, the next time it's not as bad, or it's updating, so that stuff's going to change, right? Or, you know, you do things faster than you expected, or maybe some things took a little longer, right? So I'm glad you brought up the compass. I know the listeners have heard me talk about it, you know, as I've talked about different things we've done with you all and how we've implemented some of these things. But I wanted to mention, just in case the listener didn't hear it before in the previous episodes, look up Don's book, the Building an Elite Organization, and you're going to hear about a number of these things through that book. Highly encourage it, and you're going to hear more about what Matt is talking about, is this compass, and it's almost like a massive strategic planning thing, right? It helps you to nail down these things and think through long term. And even the rocks, I think that's helped us. I think a harder point for us right now is ensuring the rocks are the correct rocks, you know, for everybody, right? You know, even for myself, I think it's difficult to know exactly out of all the things that need to be done. You know, what are those top 3, like you're talking about? That I can get done in the next 90 days. But Matt, before we end this segment, just so listeners know, we're going to do another segment with Matt and cover some other things. But Matt, anything else as far as navigating the storm and help, as far as seeing the storm coming? Anything else you would add before we end this segment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. As far as adding addition, to me, this is just about. Again, it's a metaphor, right? That storm being a metaphor, and
right.
And really, I think the thing that most people deviate from facing that storm head on because of is it's discomfort, right? It's going to be, it's we all want to be on that beach, right? We all want to be on that beach. We all want to have the drink in our hands. We all want to be lounging in the sun with with loved ones around, but the way to achieve that, right? The way to achieve that is not by chasing that thing, right? It's not by looking for the vacation spot, or it's not that. Those aren't the things that will help us get to the point in time where we can truly enjoy being on the beach with loved ones, with that drink in the hand, right? Enjoying the beautiful weather. It's achievement comes through growth, comes through gains, come through discomfort. And this is no different, in business than it is in personal life, than it is in, physical fitness, right? Experiencing difficulty, experiencing pain, physical, mental struggle. That's where growth comes from. Colleague of mine, Bo, DLP hosts a number of events over the course of the year. One of the things that Bo will consistently say when asked, or when speaking directly to the crowd, right, is he draws this picture, not physically, but kind of up in the air, right, and it's this picture around him, right, and it's a sphere, so to speak, right. He calls it it's this sphere of comfort, right, and people have a really difficult time pressing on the boundaries of that comfort circle, right, or that bubble that encases them and protects them from new things and different things and difficult things. But the idea is once you flex the boundaries of that sphere grows, and you realize that because that has grown, you're now more dynamic for the additional area within that sphere, right? And so I don't know that that's necessarily what you're asking for, but I try to give a metaphor, specific examples. Certainly happy to dive into more specific examples of where I've experienced pain and the becoming better on the back end of that. If that's where we go to the next segment, we'll stop there. But I think it's a great analogy. I like that, pushing on that sphere. But it's that comfort zone limits us, doesn't it? But I guess it's the mindset though behind the comfort zone and not feeling, not being open to some discomfort, right? And looking towards the education of the learning. I think a lot of people will avoid that because of fear, right? Just kind of as a last comment, and as business leaders, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, right? Really look at that when people have failed, because that's one of the biggest fears. One of the biggest fears of flexing that circle of comfort, right? Is that, but I'm very good in here. I'm very good within this area that I've got control of, that I feel like I've got a handle on, that I've developed some expertise in, right? And if I push outside of those boundaries, I might fail. We really need desperately to make sure that individuals know that that's okay, right? People should understand what the boundaries are, right? People should understand what the limits are. Nobody needs a 4-year-old trying to get behind the wheel of a car because they're flexing the sphere of discomfort, right? It goes into business and everywhere else. No limitations, right? But understand that experiencing that discomfort because of I'm a little bit more uncertain out here, that's a good thing, and we need to reciprocate that as leaders and as entrepreneurs, right? When people fail, but they fail when they're trying to achieve something that would benefit not only the organization but also them, and they did it with the best of intentions. Make sure to be cognizant of that when addressing the failure, and do it appropriately so that they'll continue to be dynamic and attempt to grow and benefit themselves and benefit the organization. That's a great just leadership point right there, right? Not how you acknowledge that failure could motivate them, or it could just crush them, right?
Well, Matt, honored to have you on the show and to dive into some of this. Looking forward to furthering the discussion. Is there a way that the listener could get in touch with you or learn more about you that you'd want to share? Maybe they could, I don't know, get in touch if they had a question for you.
Sure, absolutely. It's easy enough to get me on email. It's Matt, matt.john, John, just like the first name, at dlpcapital.com. I'm certainly happy to hear from or assist in any way from any of your listeners that want to reach out.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.